Hey, what's up there, everybody? How y'all doing, my friends? I figure I'll just get right into it, make a video. Just came out to my little office area, sat down, and I thought I'm going to make a video and kind of expand a little bit on a few thoughts I had the other day when I was having a different discussion about morals and humans and whatnot. So, being being a human, being a human being, uh, it almost becomes difficult to talk about, as we all know. Consciousness is something you can't study when you're conscious. We study animals, but uh, you can only learn so much about humans by observing animals. Uh, I don't want to get too far into just rambling here, but I have a few uh, main points I wanted to make. First off, I don't know shit. We are all completely biased. When I originally came out here to read a paper that I wrote the other day, it's about 5 pages. It'll probably be about a 10 to 15 minute read. And it talks about our tendency to overestimate our ability to distinguish bullshit from reality. And I'm not talking about news or stories or conspiracies or anything like that. I'm talking about the simple fact that if you color wine red, experts will think it's red wine. Or if you eat yogurt with a metal spoon, it actually tastes creamier. The way our brains perceive things, the way we don't even realize, this happens when we have a discussion with other people, where we make assumptions about what they're going to say or what they mean by what they say, and it's difficult to talk about some of the deeper things in life because um, people become very sensitive about certain topics. When I was talking about morals, for example, it reminded me because I had a couple of people who mentioned that humans aren't animals, just briefly and passing in their comments. And it really got me thinking about past videos I've made where I've mentioned in the video that we evolved, animals evolved, and a lot of folks really like to make the distinction between human and animal. I don't make that distinction as much as other people, I guess. Now, there was a time in my life where I wanted to believe that humans were somehow on a different level from animals around us. When you look at the evolutionary path that humans took and how young we are, and I'm sure all of you have seen it's impossible for us to gauge the age of the earth or how long life's been on this earth. But as they say, if it was a 24-hour clock, humans have only existed in, I think, the last 2 or 3 seconds, if that. It is a very small amount of time compared to the vast evolution of species which have come and gone, the giant dinosaurs before us. Yet people still cling to this notion that we're somehow above or better than animals, or that we should hold ourselves to higher standards, sure, because we're conscious. But what are higher standards? Standards are all subjective. They're all based on our own inner thoughts about what's right and wrong and what's true and what's not. And the more thinking I do about these things, instead of having more conclusions about what's how things are black and white or right and wrong or good and bad, the more that line blurs. And so when it comes to humans and animals, I mentioned the other day that crows, of course, birds are really smart. I think uh, I was mentioning how one of the strangest things to me is that crows are highly intelligent, the entire corvid species. Yet they steal food from each other, not just from other crows in other groups, but crows within their own group. And they steal nesting materials. And the reason why I mentioned that, and I never got to quite finish my thought on it, was I pictured kind of the human species when I was comparing it to crows. I was thinking, well, if one crow had a giant, monstrous nest, and the other crows were taking from his nest to build their own, the bigger that nest is, the harder it is from the one crow to even notice that people are taking it. And also the less right he really has to defend it because it's an unnecessary amount. And that was the comparison I was making to the wealth that humans have. But it becomes really difficult to explain, and here I am rambling on the subject again, trying to get to the bottom of exactly how to describe this. Put it this way, a lot of people will use human nature or comparing us to animals as an excuse to do bad things, for example. But the reality is, when you look at how animals behave, they don't do bad things. The thievery is just a very small thing. They'll scuffle, they might fight, show their dominance. Birds do this. Wolf packs, if somebody's eating out of place, that kind of thing. But generally, they keep each other in check. Nobody's out to harm anyone or kill anyone. Battles rarely turn violent. It's usually just flexing. I mean, look at the elk. The elk develops its antlers just for fighting. No other reason. Absolutely no other reason than to show its dominance over the other bucks. And it is a huge, cumbersome thing. Often they get tangled in branches, they get tangled in each other. Sometimes, I watched a really vile thing, a documentary one time where this guy was filming, he was out hunting and or hiking, whatnot, in Alaska, and he came across these, I don't know if they were caribou or elk, maybe the reindeer, whatever they were. They got their antlers tangled, and the one had died, and the other one was dragging around the head and the corpse of the other one, like part of the corpse, which they'd been tangled for a long time. He had to get out a sawzall and saw it free. Sorry to bring that in. It was just a brutal memory popped into my head. My point being that nature has respectable violence. And I can't even really call it violence. I would just say that the world's going to kick your ass if you don't stick your neck out there and defend yourself, protect yourself. We have a society now where we call other people to protect us, call the police or call somebody else to help us out. Humans are a very complex species because we don't know where we come from or where we're going. But as I said, we really want to believe that we're somehow superior to animals. As it turns out, animals have some of the same moral senses and obligatory senses to their own groups as we do, and some of them even more so, more loyalty, and they seem to function better. The difference is that animals don't have the part of their brain that nags at them saying, what should I be doing? They just do what they do. And humans, there are many humans who also don't let that nagging part of them tell them, what they should be doing. They just do what they do. And unfortunately, with the power we have as a species, we can do some really horrendous things. So it's easy for us, just because of the decisions we've made, to think that we are, well, one or the other, either better than animals or that we're somehow these, as one person mentioned earlier, and this is a good point, that his mom or grandma or something had said, that we're a virus upon this planet. And I've heard that a lot of times, and I think that really comes down to a personal mindset. I don't think we're necessarily a benefit or a detriment to this planet in the long run. As I said, our small time, we've done a lot of damage to our own environment and each other and animals, but this has happened so many times. So even though, for example, I talk about climate change, global warming, things like that, it's not like I really think that, I'm not one of those guys that has the mindset that, every human needs to stop driving their cars and that we're going to live in this perfect utopian future. I mean, space weather, solar flares, and sun, the way that the sun can act up out of the blue, changes and cycles that we don't even begin to understand as humans. We're here for this small time, and we're trying to make the best of it. And it's such a complicated endeavor. Once you find something that works for you for a while, it's almost like you kind of go, fuck, is that for me? And that's the problem with overthinking. That which comes down to the point I wanted to really make about one of the few things that we can be sure about in life. As I mentioned in the video the other day, I said that there were only like seven or eight things that this person who traveled around the world, and he interviewed several different cultures from 160 countries or whatever, people in all different cultures, and asked them what was important to them. And of course it came down to family, community, a variety of other things. But the one that was interesting was being brave. And many cultures defined it their own way. But in the West, we would call it taking risks. And as we know, no risk, no reward, and that truly goes for everything in life. If you don't go out and risk the hunt, you'll never get the animal. If you don't go out and risk planting the farm, you won't reap the rewards. But that animal might kill you, and your crop might fail, and you might have put all your time and energy into something that failed. People who take risks are the ones who get rewards, and that's very hard, because I know as an individual, the reason why I'm talking about this is because I need to take more risks. I'm afraid to branch out. I stick to what's comfortable and what I know, and sometimes it's hard. I mean, I like trying new things all the time, but let's say for a business opportunity, I want to try something new, maybe make t-shirts and, maybe sew, whatever it is. I have several different ideas, jewelry and whatnot, but then I beat myself up and I think, oh no, you can't do that, or, that'll fail, and start to run over these ideas in your head and realize, damn it, this is the problem with being a human. We have this desire and motivation to do great things, but often it backfires on us. It's really easy to look at the human species as a virus that all we do is create horrible things and destroy ourselves. But let me just say that the loudest voices are quite often the ones that have the least to say. And ignorance spews forth from so many facets, so many orifices, from so many different people. Some of them are just look at the cable news, for example. I mean, look at the douchebags who are reporting and doing what used to be called journalism, which is basically now just like a talk show posing as news with, breaking news, something happened in Hollywood, or breaking news. I mean, we've just lost any sense of what's normal in this world because of all the bullshit that we're inundated with. And so it's easy to think humans have failed. And by the videos I've made in the last, say a little while, it might be easy to think that I've gone down that road or that I'm just talking negative about the world. The fact is, I still have that positive outlook because I have to live my life. I have to be aware of the bullshit, but I also have to live my own life and try to solve some problems, which means be brave, which means take risks. Take risks to do something good, because you never, ever hear stories where a person says, oh yeah, I tried this and I failed at it and so therefore I hate myself. It's always like, I'm just going to try harder. You just keep trying, you try and you try and you do your best. As long as you know you've put it all in. And, that's hard for a lot of us. Mainly for the reason that it's hard for us to see a future worth working for if everything's just going to fall apart anyway. So anyhow, winter is when I usually do some of my downtime thinking, which is in the summertime I'm posting videos talking about nature, sitting on the porch, my garden, things like that. And in the winter, I've really utilized it as a time to think about the darkness. And if you don't embrace your darkness, then you'll always be unhappy. And I mean that in all respect, and definitely not in the way you might think if you're a religious person, say. When you say darkness, people think, oh, embrace evil or hatred, or no, none of that. Those aren't natural states of mankind. The majority of people don't just want to hate. There's this idea that we have these vices of lust and greed and envy in every man and woman, and that we just have to stop ourselves from wanting to take everybody else's stuff, which is reflected in many religious texts. But I've never had these thoughts. It depends on the moral upbringing of the individual within the family, and a huge part of it is getting the respect that we deserve as individuals from our community, and we don't feel like we're getting that from our communities. They've become too large to manage. As someone I was reading the other day, I don't recall what it was, but they were saying that when somebody who studies when societies collapse, it's usually due to too many laws, more and more bureaucracy, more and more paperwork, and then laws to counter laws, and pretty soon the whole thing falls apart because nobody can maintain it. And but that doesn't mean anything for the future of individuals, of mankind. If the entire society collapses, that's not going to put much of a crimp in existence for humans. I mean, sure, we can wipe ourselves out for the most part, but we all know that there are miles of bunkers. People will find a way to survive. It would have to be one hell of a cataclysm to really wipe us out, because we have underground facilities for miles, and not that you or I are going to ever get to go into those, but when people talk about government conspiracies and underground tunnels, a lot of the stuff can be bullshit, but when it comes to the actual huge tunnels, like under the Denver airport and elsewhere, these are real things. I mean, yeah, they've got giant boring machines and they've tunneled out miles of underground caverns, and of course they're going to use them in a disaster. So my point is that no matter what happens, some people will survive. And it's interesting to think what would happen if everything fell apart, and then a few people could repopulate with some lost or hidden knowledge, which may have happened a long time ago. And it's just fascinating to be a human and consider, as I said, how long history really is. And our arrogance and our hubris, we really think that we're the first advanced civilization because we can't picture time. In a million years, all of our metal buildings would be gone, crumbled to dust. It's been thousands of millions of years as the Earth's been around. I mean, we just can't grasp it. It really makes it difficult because we want to understand more than we can understand. So, what is my point? Let go of these huge questions that you can never answer. It's fine to just ponder them. But don't be so obsessed about an afterlife or what came before this or reincarnation. Live this life to its fullest. Take as many risks as you can and reap as many rewards as you can. Having a family is a risk. Having children, for example. Is he going to be born healthy? Are they going to live to be an adult? Everything we do is a risk, but the rewards can be immense. So I want my message, the takeaway from this, not to be, oh shit, the world can collapse, but rather, as an individual, you don't have to be affected by the world's bullshit. You can still take action and actually speak up for the way you feel without getting bothered and upset by what's going on out there or in another place. So that's all. I'll leave it at that. I'll talk to y'all later. Have a wonderful day. Thanks to my peeps. Thanks to my subscribers. Thanks to the commenters. Thanks to my patrons. And I will talk to you all on the flip side. Bye.